Because as you can see, the music actually plays a part. It almost feels like sort of like an English documentary type sort of introduction. And it just became angelic. So that's how you can use.
I'm on a journey to create the greatest movie experience in the world. While I'm carving out my filmmaking entrepreneurial path, I want to help you create yours. Let's make some movies.
In this video, I'm going to talk about cuts and techniques that will instantly make your videos way better, which, by the way, this idea was suggested by you guys by going over to my Instagram and voting on my polls. So if you want to get involved and help give me more ideas to what content I should be doing next time, please go to my Instagram. Link is in the description. Today, I thought I'd dive into this. I don't know how many of you are familiar with, but I've been an editor for about 10 years, both creatively and commercially. By the way, just to clarify, when I talk about editing, I'm not talking about how to create graphics. I'm not talking about how to create visual effects. I'm not talking about how to create music. I'm not talking about what type of music to use or the color correction or the visual effects or any of that stuff. We're mainly focusing on the editing. Now, I might touch on like text and graphics and other things, but this is mainly from an editing perspective, all right? Because those are kind of other departments on their own. But if you want to know a little bit more about that, let me know in the comments. So right now, we're in my key software. This is called Final Cut 10. Now, some of you might have some issues with Final Cut 10. Listen, I've been using this software since 2012 when I first went from Windows XP to a Mac, and right now Final Cut 10 has been helping me for the longest time. The important thing that you gotta remember though is that it doesn't matter what software you use. The techniques I'm gonna show you guys can apply anywhere in your stage. This could be if you're a beginner or a pro. Now, I will try and adjust it so that all of you can use it. There might be some things that beginner softwares may not be able to do, but I'm gonna try my best to make sure that all of you have those same techniques so that you can apply it to your own projects. But right now, we're in Final Cut 10. Before I actually get started, there's something I want you to really understand about sort of my approach towards just editing in general. To me, the number one priority has to be the audience's retention. I think there's a lot of mistakes out there where people tend to focus more on like, oh, fancy, flashy creativity. It's all about making sure that your audience pays attention and is engaged in your video or your movie from start all the way to finish. So that's one of the things that I highly prioritize. I really suggest that you take the time to really make sure you're capturing that. If there's a moment that's boring, people will click away, or if it's in a movie, people will stop caring. They won't be as invested in the story anymore. So it's so important that you capture everyone's attention from start all the way to finish. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys really understood that, because that's sort of my priority towards editing any sort of project. Whether you're a beginner or an expert, this applies all across the spectrum. Now, let's jump into 10 cuts and techniques that you can apply to make your videos better. First, I want to touch into techniques, and before you even start editing, the first thing that you really need to make sure you're doing is to keep your space as organized as possible and make sure you're as efficient in your software as possible. Now, keep in mind, obviously, maybe you're watching this video and you maybe don't want to take editing seriously, which is totally fine. For me, I found it super helpful that one, you're as organized as possible. You don't want to be searching around for anything because that's going to be a huge waste of time. You want to have as much of all your stuff into the software as possible, so you're not bringing in the footage and then you go and have to search music and bring that in later, or you have to go and get something else and then bring it in later. That you try to have everything at once, because this is just about saving time and allowing you to be in that creative headspace to keep the creative juices flowing. Nothing frustrates me more than when I'm in that creative flow and I have to stop for whatever reason. It could be 10,000 different reasons, but the moment I stop, the juices stop flowing. So be as organized as possible. So if you look at my software, depending on the software that you use, you might just be bringing everything into a library. I know there are some softwares that do that. There are some softwares that might organize it by folders. I know in Final Cut 7, and I believe in Adobe Premiere, you organize your stuff into sort of folders. So you have a folder that has like footage and something that has pictures or whatever, and you can organize it that way. In Final Cut 10, we use tags. So all these are sort of like key tags. Even though it's called editing on iMovie, which is a video I made last year, which you can check out. I'm going to have in the link up above and in the description down below. This is mainly like my YouTube videos. This is essentially what this library is all about. And then I have these which organize my different things. And it may look chaotic, but for me, this is specifically for me. This helps me. I created a tag called the cuts and techniques that will instantly make your videos better. And this is where I have everything in one place. Now, you might want to organize it by footage, graphics, music. You can do whatever you need to. It's just about being organized as possible. Even going into your folders. And this is a typical idea, a typical example of what my folders look like. This literally is what it looks like pretty much all the time. So I have my one project folder, and then I organize it: footage, graphics, music, pics, sounds. You know, my footage folder, I have all this. So you can color code it. Depends. You know, I'm not a big fan of this color coding in the new Mac softwares, but it's completely up to you. It's just for easy eye recognition, again, organization and efficiency. So I have my footage, which has all that. I have music, which has certain music files that I'm already planned on using. And then thanks to Final Cut 10, all I have to do is just import the one folder, and all these different folders get created into the individual tags. That is what your folder should look like. It doesn't matter what you're shooting. It doesn't matter what you're shooting on. It doesn't matter what your project is. This is what it should look like. There can even be as many different folders as you want. There could even be one on just renders. Right, renders or exports, whatever you want to call it, just so you can keep it as organized as possible. And listen, even in footage, you could organize it by, you know, day one, as an example. This could be on, you know, the Canon camera. This could be on second cam or whatever. You can organize it, you know, in as much as possible. Music, I could organize this by, you know, sad, happy, whatever, right? And the idea is that we're being as organized as possible. We're making your life as easy as you can. So I highly recommend be as organized as humanly possible. Before you start editing, try and be familiar with it, because again, this is about being efficient. This is about letting those creative juices flowing and having no interruptions whatsoever. You don't want to be having this creative moment where you're like, oh, I want to do X, Y, and Z, but then you're trying to figure out the software you're trying to use. Okay, I tried doing that in my video editing on iMovie. Wasn't fun. Technique number one is be as efficient and as organized as possible when you're editing. Okay, now let's get into some actual editing with number two. We're going to learn about a standard cut. So a standard cut is basically if I have two clips, they go one into the other, no transitions, nothing special. So I'm going to grab one clip, and I'm going to grab another clip. Basically, we're playing straight from one video into the other. All right, so the third type of cut that we're going to learn is what's called a jump cut. Now, a jump cut is when you take your whole clip, but you take certain chunks of it out, bring those moments together, and so you're basically cutting it across time much faster. So I'll show you what I mean. Obviously, this is a pretty lengthy video, 20 seconds. I don't want to make my audience watch the entire 20-second video. So I'm going to mute this. And then what we're going to do is I'm actually going to cut, just about there when the camera's up. I'm going to grab a few seconds. I'm going to cut. I'm going to go forward a little bit. I'm going to make a couple more cuts. Go forward a little bit more, make a few more cuts. And by the way, this is called Blade. This is a specific tool that I have in my software. If you can't do this specific tool, then there's a technique called trimming. Trimming is basically when you grab the edge of the clip and you pull it back. So if I were to do exactly what I just showed you, I would do this. Grab this, cut it to here. Bring the next clip. Cut this to about the middle. Then bring this here. And then we're going to bring in the clip again. You see what I'm talking about by trying to be as efficient as possible? This becomes slightly time consuming. But I'm just showing you that this is a technique that you can use in the most basic software. If you don't have to do that and you can just do the simple, blade technique that I just showed you, which most can do. It's either called blade or split. Then it just makes life easy. So you see how we just jumped across. We were here, then we were there, and then we went further down the road. So what this does is actually speeds out the video without actually speeding out the video. People do this when they're talking all the time. You'll see some of the biggest YouTubers on the planet doing this exact same technique. Watch this. I'm going to take a video of me speaking, and I'm basically going to do jump cuts. Right. So basically what I just took out were the boring parts so that we could just jump straight into the regular stuff. And the reason why this is called a jump cut is I'm using the exact same shot. That's why. So obviously exact same shot, exact same angle, but we're just cutting in between. We're here. We're at the Fresh Press Cafe. Over there he got himself a really nice white hot chocolate. He said it was delicious. So right now I'm just spending the next few minutes So I just took all the boring stuff out just to make things speed along. And again, the reason why we want to use this technique is because it's about keeping audiences' retention. So it's just taking the boring stuff out just so we can get to the good stuff and keep the flow going. The next cut that we're going to show you is called a J cut and an L cut. This one I had to look up because I actually don't use the technical names. I just do it. So some basic softwares may not be able to do this. You might have your video and you might have your audio. Well, that audio is going to change, where either the audio is going to come earlier than the video, or the video is going to come first and then the audio changes later. I'll show you what I mean. Now, what I can do in my software is I'm going to separate the video from the audio using detach. So if we were to listen to this as it normally would look, so as you can see, basically the audio and the video cut at the same time. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the audio from the next scene. I'm going to bring it in just a little bit early. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to do that. This is called the J cut. And then the L cut is the opposite. In this sort of area, there he got himself a really nice, So this is just to prove a point that basically you can bring your audio in early. This is going to get everyone introduced into the next scene. Or we could do the opposite, do a J cut. So I'm going to bring the audio from this shot into the next one. There's a lot of really teeny tiny towns. Now obviously the footage that I just used is kind of clunky, so let's use this practically. So that's just an example of how you can just use that technique and really just play with it so that you can really use it to the max. Okay, so the fifth cutter technique I'm going to show you is about fades. There's a whole conversation we can have about fades. And when I'm talking about fades, I'm talking about, it could be called fade, cross dissolve, fade to white, fade to black. So let me show you what I mean. If I were to go to my transitions, cross dissolve, slap it right in the middle, and this is what it looks like. That's what a fade is. And then a fade to white is basically grabbing a solid, right? And if I were to add the transition and made it black, it would look like this. Right? That's called a fade to black. And basically I can also do it on the opposing side as well. So I will go back to my library, grab another clip, bring her in. And fading from black inwards. So as you can see, that can also be kind of a good intro, and then a good outro is having it fade to black. There's already different ways we can do this. Now in my case, I can go to custom, change it to white. If you don't have any of these options, what then I highly recommend you do is basically go to Google, search up white solid or black solid, get a picture, throw on your timeline, exactly the same thing. And this is one of those case scenarios where you're not going to run into copyright because really you're talking about a solid. It's not a picture, it's not a graphic, it's not someone else's piece of art. It's just one solid color. So that's a fade to white. Technique number 6 that I'm going to go into is called a montage. What a montage is basically a bunch of clips all put together. Now, this serves a specific purpose. It usually kind of shows a stretch of time and space. And I know this is going to get a little techie and a little bit deep in philosophy, but picture the montage from Rocky 1. When he's doing the training, when he's going from, just getting into the training to becoming an expert. We're showing a length of time and we're showing a length of space as well. He's going from the gym to areas in Philadelphia, or he's going from start all the way to finish. There's a length of time and a length of progression. That's what a montage does. So how am I doing a montage? Well, I'm going to go to one clip. And this is different from the jump cut because a montage is using different clips, as opposed to the jump cut is using areas in the same clip. So I'm going to use a little bit of that. Let's throw in a little bit of that. And let's throw in a little bit of that. So this is just a quick example of a montage, but what kind of a story would that tell? Well, it kind of shows that here I am, I'm on the road, and here I am arriving at my destination. That's sort of an example of there's some time and space that's being condensed in a very short way, right? We're on the road, now more road, me, and then the location. So that's what a montage does. And you can do this in any software, any. All you're basically doing is just cutting together a bunch of different clips. And again, a good montage is just showing some progression of time and space. Technique number 7, we're going to go into how to edit music. There's a lot of different techniques that sort of apply to the same thing with our video. So first off, I'm just going to grab a track. This is called I'm going to grab Moonlight Sonata. This is a good example. Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven, as someone who is a classical musician. So if we just take a quick listen. Okay, so there's a few ways we can work with this in order to make it work for our video project. Number 1 is you can either grab the entire track, lay it in the video, and just use the entire thing. Now, as you can see, this video is 5 minutes and 41 seconds long, which may be a little long for some of you, depending on your video. So how can we cut this shorter? Well, easily, we could just grab 2 areas of the music, cut it together sort of like that, but then it might sound a little clunky like this. See, you can hear that cut in there. So obviously this music's been sort of tampered with, and that's going to become a distraction. Your audience will be able to pick that up, especially if it's that obvious. I got some lovely merch from the Unity Christian High School in Barrie, which is a place that I spoke at. If you want to check out that video, it's in the cards and in the description down below. Thanks so much for Unity for giving me an awesome water bottle. So we could do that, but it's going to sound very clunky. So how can we do this where it's not going to be nowhere near as clunky? So in order to really get deep into music editing, there's a little bit of music theory you got to understand. So first off, the easiest way I can explain this to you without going deep into music theory is find things that look the same. And then what I also like doing is by using your arrows. It might be other ways too. What this does is it moves your cursor by a frame, and this allows you to find certain beats, certain notes. So you can actually hear it too. Okay, so you hear how those are 2 very different notes? Okay, so I'm going to leave a mark. I'm going to press M in my software. This is just to help me find certain places in the music. Maybe you might be able to do different things, or leave a cut. That works too. Now I'm going to listen to the rest of the music, and I'm going to try and see if I can find another piece of the music that matches. All right, so I think this is it. Or as close as I can find. This may have actually been a bad example to use, but let's see what this sounds like. I'm just going to move this aside. Okay, sweet. So it actually works out. That's kind of nice. That's kind of nice. So, and as you can see, it kind of works from going one into the other, and it doesn't sound as obvious of a cut as we heard last time. Right now, there's still a very, very subtle sort of giveaway, but we're going to fix that. And there's several ways we can fix that. And the number one way that we can fix it is literally by putting a transition. Now, this will depend on your software. Maybe it will let you do this, maybe it won't. But we could put in a small sort of fade. So basically one's going to fade out as the other one fades in. Amazing. So as you can see, it just nicely goes from one into the other. Now, maybe you not have this technique or that option. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one and I'm going to edit it over just slightly. Then by using my crossfades like that, but it creates the same idea where the music is going to fade out and the level's going to drop. Okay, now I don't know if you heard it. I heard a slight sort of note difference where one note was here, one note was here. So it's like we were hearing two different notes simultaneously. So I'm going to change this slightly. Excellent. So that's a way how we can make sure that it goes from one into the other and we don't hear any clashing. By the way, the music that I'm using right now is actually from a website called soundstripe.com, which is my favorite website to grab unlimited access to different songs and tracks I use in literally all my YouTube videos and with client work. So if you want to have access to this amazing library, it's just one yearly payment and you get access to unlimited amounts of music that's literally being updated every single day, and you can license it to your video. Basically, if you want to go to the website, just click on the link down in the description where if you click on the link and you use my access code, you're able to get 10% off your yearly subscription. So you're going to save 10%, plus I also get a small commission, so you're also supporting me and my channel so that I'm able to do more of these tutorials, more of these videos. So it's just a win-win for everyone, and I highly recommend Soundstripe for all your videos. So go check that out in the description. So I like this jig. It's kind of fast. Right, and I'm actually going to basically grab a start. Basically going to cut by frames. So clearly that's where the music starts. And then this is where we get into a little bit of music theory. Basically, next time you listen to a song, there's a possible chance that you're going to hear 4 beats at any one time. Listen. Did you hear it? So there's 4 beats in pretty much every piece of music, even the one we heard before. So that's just a simple way on how you can find those beats and those counts. So as you can hear, when we're playing the music, there's that simple beat in the background that we can just hear, this pulse. This can help us find those cuts, right? So if I were to cut, let's cut after 4 beats. Let's keep it simple. And we're basically going to cut on the 1. There we go. So we're going to cut that. And then we're going to jump straight into something later. Okay, so another way that you can find good places to cut is just listen to where the music changes. Right, so we have that moment where a lot of instruments come in. There we go. So we have that part. Cut these both together. And I may not even need to use a transition. And this is a good place where, see, if it's fast music, this is where I recommend don't use any fades whatsoever, just because it's very hard to keep those beats in sync. Because what you don't want to do is, if the tracks are even slightly out of sync, then you're going to hear this beat that we just established. You're going to hear like this ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. You want them to be absolutely in sync, so you hear one consistent beat. Boom, bum, bum. Right? No issues whatsoever. I'm going to just show you what I mean by where you really want to make sure that the beats are perfectly aligned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to extend it out a little bit, align them, add a transition. Let me see if you can hear sort of like the tracks being slightly out of sync. So there's a slight hiccup. Maybe it didn't come as clearly. So I'm going to grab something else. I want to show you a point about, can you hear the beats not being aligned? Oh, you can hear it there. See, like it's just a big mess of all these different notes happening and they're not together. Right? So this is where we really want to make sure that we're as in sync as humanly possible. All right, so I'm glad we have the music down here, because I want to go into my next cutting technique, number 8, which is editing your video to music. And there's different ways we can use this technique. So I'm going to use the same technique, the same music that we just have down here, Blue Ridge. And again, we're going to establish this beat that happens. Going to that beat that I mentioned to you before, we heard that constant beat. This is where you're going to want to match your cuts to the music. And the reason why is because everything's just going to match nicely. It's going to feel better. And it's really going to emphasize those cuts and the music quite tremendously. I'm going to show you what I mean. So this is an example of like some fast, exciting music. So I'm basically just going to grab a bunch of random clips, as I normally do. And I'm just going to show you what it would look like if I just cut this music together with the video and it wasn't exactly matched up. So it's just music, some video clips, but they don't exactly match up. So this is what it would look like if we were to match them up. So I'm going to go back to my music and I'm going to find those beats, those pulses. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark what those are. Again, if you don't use markers, just put a splint there. There. So now what we can do with these marks is just cut our video to match these beats. And this is basically as a guide. You may have to do some fine tune a little bit more. You might want to fine tune a little bit more. There, you see how they match the music beats, and it emphasizes a little bit more. Now, I'm gonna get rid of that. I'm gonna take some of our music from before, and I'm gonna show you something else. So when you listen to Moonlights Now, you're not gonna listen to 4 beats. That's not gonna happen. But we can still find pulses. So you hear those. There's slight pulses like. Good. So it's just those moments to emphasize. And what we can do is I'm going to grab the exact same clips that we just used before. There you go. So you could do something like that, again, where everything is cut together. Or this is where you could also use fades. So once you have those cuts aligned, basically you want to add fades in. You want to make them relatively small-ish. And it just became angelic. So that's how you can use editing your music to just make it that much better. Instead of just having just one layer of your videos and then just slap in a music track, it's nice to have everything sort of match up. Now here's a technique that I didn't share with you when it comes to your editing, and I see this way too often, is make sure that you're mixing or leveling your music. What I mean by this is you don't want your music so loud that we can't hear you speak. So obviously, you tell me if you can hear me speaking with the music very loud. Okay, I don't know about you, but I can't even hear myself think. So what I'm going to do, you're going to change the level of the music and make it lower so that we can hear you more. So the idea of this is basically we want to hear the voices very, very clearly and then very subtly hear the music. We don't want the music to overpower us, right? So this is where I would play the video so that we can hear the audio and then change this. I'm actually going to use a different clip, something with more clean audio. And then basically I'm going to edit through and then just find that sweet spot. Everyone got here early for the sound. And right now I'm just getting set up. So I grabbed. Alright, so as you can hear, like we can hear me speaking nice and clearly, but we can very subtly hear this music. So that's coming in kind of nicely. You can also use this technique for moments when you're not speaking and then bring the music back up. So what I mean by that is, so obviously here, there's a moment where I'm not speaking. Like here. All the way to here, right? So what I might want to do is actually change the music, where you can do one of two things. Either one, change the levels like this. And essentially this is just a very quick version, but what I'm doing is I'm keying the music to go from here to here. Stretch it out just a little bit so it's not as obvious. Drink just has some there, so you see how it's going from low to high, but we bring it back low just to hear the voices again. So we can do that, or I'm going to get rid of that, and what we can do is cut here, raise the music to the desired level, add in some crossfades like we did before. Just has some excellent. Because as you can see, the music actually plays a part, right? Like if we did that, you know, it actually seems kind of lively and fun compared to if I were to use like really sombering, sad music. And right now I'm just getting set up. So I grabbed just a drink, just has some birthday. It's very mellow and very sort of sad. So technique number 9 I'm going to share with you. So we just learned about editing music. I want to quickly show you about editing text. Now again, we're not talking about how to create your graphics or text. This is just how you want to use text in it. So I'm literally just grabbing something super basic, just going to my text. Now this will depend on the software that you have. I know some softwares don't have something, you know, basic. Doesn't matter. You can use whatever text that your software gives you. So for mine, I have just basic title. So it's nothing special. It's just that. No effects, no color, nothing. So I'm just going to use this to give you an example. So I'm going to just write my name in. What I like doing is when you have your text, what you can do is you can use the technique that we learned before with the J cut and the L cut. So what do I mean by this? Well, I'm basically going to cut here. I'm going to cut here. And then you have this effect. You got Candy King White Hot Chocolate. You said it was delicious. There you go. You know that feeling when you it almost feels like sort of like a English documentary type sort of introduction. So that's one way you can do it. The other way that we can do this, fading in and out, obviously. What I mostly like using text for, especially in my videos, is let's say it's like the end of a trailer or a commercial type thing. Or it could be your credits. So you might have a video. I'm going to grab a black solid, something to match my text, or I might have my text appear above the solid, but I'm just going to have it here for now. Basically, I'm going to create a cross dissolve, put it here. I'm going to put another cross dissolve here. So it's basically going to fade out from this clip and fade into the next text. Like that. Which that technique can be used in 10,000 different ways, of course. I'm going to do something slightly different now. replace this with white. Like that. And the big technique when it comes to text is you want to have as very little writing as possible. Your audience is not reading a book. That's not what text is for. So what I like doing is just putting something very simple. So it's just as long as you can instantly read what's on the text, that's all that matters. So it could be that, you'll often see me put in the date, like at the time I'm recording this video, this is 2020. I might add stuff like single words just to emphasize something, videos, products, services. If I was to use this in a trailer, I could have names appear, right? All right, we've made it to number 10. The final technique that I'm going to show you guys is about layering or staging your edit. And here's what I mean. The purpose of this is just to keep your flow as organized and as efficient as possible. So when I say layers, this may apply more to sort of advanced softwares like Final Cut 10. I can do this. Premiere, you can also do this. And basically you create one layer and then you can add in another bunch of layers sort of like on top of that. So this is basically us creating our layers. And basically when it comes to either layers or stages, both of them work. What you want to do is you want to focus on one task and one job at a time. So here's what I mean. So I'm going to get rid of all of this. Let us pretend that this one clip is someone that we're interviewing. So I would want to go through, go in, make sure that you're editing it. Basically get your interview done. Edit the interview. Get that looking all nice and clean. Then the next step is to look into, let's say, B-roll, because now you've got all these cuts and you got to choose between whether you want this to be like a jump cut or you want to cover it up with B-roll so that it's like the cut never happened. So then we can start editing in stuff like B-roll. So then we have sort of like this stuff that's happening. And then we've added in some B-roll. What we can start doing is start editing in music and start focusing on that. Then I might want to start putting in my graphics and my text, then my sound effects, etc., etc. And it's just, instead of working on everything at once, because I've done that before and it gets very chaotic very quickly, just focus on one job at a time. If you're editing a trailer, my suggestion is start with the music first, edit the music so it's how you like it, then edit the voices, then edit everything else. If it's, someone speaking, like if you're speaking your video, just edit you first and then add everything else afterwards. All right, so today I just taught you 10 different cuts and techniques that will instantly make your videos better. I hope this helped you out, and if it did, let me know in the comments below. Please smash that like button if you got value, and make sure you subscribe because I got so much great videos coming for 2020. And if you have any questions, let me know too. Join me in my Instagram and my social media in order to stay up to date as to what my videos are going to be. Good luck with your editing, and I will see you next time.